There is a weapon that Iran's military engineers have been testing for 3 years. Photographed on launch pads, tracked by satellite, debated in classified intelligence assessments on 3 continents that no Western defense analyst has ever seen deployed in actual combat. It is called the Fata 2. Its designers describe its terminal phase as a jellyfish descent, an unpredictable, oscillating approach trajectory that breaks every intercept algorithm ever written, that arrives at its target from an angle that no radar system can predict, because the missile itself is choosing its final path in real time, adjusting its trajectory at Mach 13 based on defensive fire it detects below it. Iran fired the Fata 2 today, not as a test, not over the Caspian, over the Gulf, against the most expensive, most layered, most technologically sophisticated air defense architecture that American money has ever built in any region of the world, and the results of that first combat deployment of the weapon that kept American carrier commanders awake for months are now being confirmed in real time by witnesses, by defense ministries, and by the craters and fires visible from space. Shahed 136 drones targeted the proximity of the Burj Khalifa, causing an evacuation order and the activation of the emergency protocol of the building. The UAE said that it had intercepted a new wave of Iranian missiles, and that fragments from the interceptions had fallen in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. Residential areas of Dubai, in the proximity of the Dubai Marina and the Dubai Palm, were hit by strikes, setting the Fairmont, the Palm Hotel, on fire, causing 4 injuries. The Fairmont Palm on fire. The Burj Khalifa, the tallest structure in human history, the symbol of everything. The Gulf built during 30 years of peace under evacuation protocol. Not because a missile hit it, because Iran's drones were close enough to the world's tallest building that the government of Dubai decided it could not guarantee the safety of the 30,000 people inside it and ordered them out into streets where missile debris from intercepts was already falling on Saadiyat Island, Khalifa City, Dubai Marina, and Bani Yas. A long-range early warning radar in northern Qatar was targeted by an Iranian missile, according to sources who spoke to Al Jazeera. The early warning radar in northern Qatar, the $1.5 billion system that was supposed to detect incoming Iranian missiles from 5,000 kilometers away and give American and Qatari forces the minutes they needed to scramble interceptors, was one of Iran's first confirmed direct hits of the day. Not a missed attempt. A confirmed strike on the specific facility that makes everything else in the Gulf's layered defense work. Destroy the early warning radar, and you do not just blind one installation, you blind the entire network. Every Patriot battery, every THAAD launcher, every naval Aegis system that depends on that radar's targeting data for its intercept calculations is now operating without the sensor foundation it was designed to use. The source document describes this as Iran's deliberate sequencing. First, destroy the radar that sees the incoming missiles. Then fire the missiles that the now blind defense systems cannot find. That sequencing, attacking sensors before weapons, blinding before striking, is the doctrine of a military that has been planning this campaign for years, not improvising a response in 90 minutes. And the early warning radar in northern Qatar is the proof that Iran was executing a plan, not reacting to one. President Donald Trump said in a video posted to social media shortly after strikes began that the mission, dubbed Operation Epic Fury, would raze Iran's missile industry to the ground and annihilate its navy. Operation Epic Fury. That is the American name for what started this morning. And Iran's answer to Operation Epic Fury, the operation that has no official name yet, but that the IRGC has described as Operation True Promise 4, has, within the first 8 hours, destroyed Qatar's primary early warning radar, hit the Fairmont Palm, evacuated the Burj Khalifa, struck Kuwait International Airport, hit 3 residential buildings in Bahrain, damaged the 5th Fleet's headquarters, and fired missiles at every American military installation from Jordan to Saudi Arabia simultaneously, with its hypersonic missiles still in reserve, with its Fata 2 still largely unused, with its 3rd and 4th waves still being loaded onto launchers across the country's dispersed, tunnel-protected, AI-assisted targeting infrastructure that China and Russia spent 8 months helping Iran make survivable against exactly the kind of opening American strike that happened this morning. Stay with me, because the radar is gone. And when the radar is gone, what comes next is the part that no American defense planner wanted to model. To understand why destroying Qatar's early warning radar is more strategically significant than hitting the 5th Fleet headquarters, you need to understand what that radar actually does, and what happens to every weapon system in the Gulf's defense network when it goes offline. The long-range early warning radar in northern Qatar, described by defense analysts as an AN-TPY-2 class system integrated into the American THAAD architecture across the region, does not fire missiles. It sees, It detects ballistic missile launches from 1,000 to 5,000 kilometers away, depending on trajectory, calculates the incoming projectile's velocity and vector within seconds of launch, and transmits that targeting solution to every THAAD battery, every Patriot system, every Naval Aegis combat management computer in the theater simultaneously. Without that data feed, each of those systems must rely on its own shorter-range terminal radar. Sensors designed to engage missiles that are already 40 to 100 kilometers away, giving interceptor crews 60 to 90 seconds instead of 6 to 9 minutes to respond. The barrages marked the first time in history that Tehran directly attacked the UAE, Jordan, Bahrain, and Kuwait. It was a clear departure from the previous 12-day conflict between the United States, Israel, and Iran in June 2025, when Iran telegraphed a hit on the Al Udeid air base in Doha hours in advance. That allowed Qatar and the U.S. military to knock down its missiles and for life to return to normal a few hours later. Hours of advance notice in June 2025. No notice this time. That difference between an Iran that telegraphed its strike to preserve the diplomatic channel and an Iran that has decided the diplomatic channel is permanently closed is the difference between a contained 12-day war and what is unfolding right now. The missiles that hit Kuwait's airport terminal today arrived without the warning that allowed Kuwait to position its interceptors optimally in June 2025. The drones that set the Fairmont Palm on fire came from a direction that the blinded Qatar radar could not provide data on. The sequencing is not accidental. According to sources in the Iranian government, a girls' elementary school was directly targeted in the Israeli and American attacks on Manab City. Based on the special governor of Manab City, in the Israeli missile attack on a girls' elementary school in the city, 64 students have been killed and 92 students have been injured. Later reports stated 85 students were killed in Manab. 85 girls, killed in an elementary school in Manab, a provincial port city in southern Iran's Hormozgan province that has no nuclear facility, no IRGC command center, no weapons storage site that any published targeting doctrine identifies as a legitimate military objective. The source document described 80 girls killed at a school in Iran, a number that is now confirmed as 85 with 92 more injured, in a single Israeli strike on a single building full of children on a Saturday morning when they were at school because Saturday is a regular school day in Iran. The Iranian Red Crescent said that more than 200 people have been killed and roughly 700 others have been injured following the attacks. 200 dead, 700 injured. In the first 8 hours of Operation Epic Fury, before Iran has deployed its hypersonic weapons, before the Strait of Hormuz closure that Gulf vessels have already been warned about, before Hezbollah has made its decision, before the Houthis have fully resumed Red Sea operations, before the second wave of American and Israeli strikes that the IDF announced it has already begun in central Iran. Iranian missile and drone attacks struck the headquarters of U.S. naval forces, central command, and residential buildings elsewhere in the island nation as part of attacks that have continued for more than 9 hours. Multiple explosions rocked the capital of Manama as air raid warning sirens blared and armored vehicles convoyed along roads. Military personnel were directed in alerts Saturday night to evacuate sections of the capital city of Manama and to leave any high-rise apartments for safer ground below. 9 hours. 9 hours of continuous strikes on the same city. Manama, Bahrain, with air raid sirens still going, armored vehicles still moving, American military personnel still being directed to evacuate high-rise apartments 9 hours after the first missile landed. This is not a retaliatory strike. This is a sustained military operation against American infrastructure, executed in waves against a defense system whose primary early warning sensor was destroyed in the first hour of the campaign. The source document says something about what comes next that every investor, every airline, every government, and every person with money or family anywhere in the Gulf needs to understand right now. Iran has not yet used its most dangerous weapons. The Patriot, the THAAD, the Arrow. They have been firing against ballistic missiles and Shahed drones. The Fata 2 hypersonic, with its jellyfish terminal trajectory and its Mach 13 plasma sheath that blinds radar during the most critical phase of intercept, that weapon has not been committed to combat yet. It is in reserve, waiting for the order that determines what Phase 3 of this campaign looks like. There is a line from the IRGC's operational announcement today that has been quoted in every wire service story filed since the first wave of strikes landed, and it deserves to be taken literally rather than read as rhetoric, because everything the IRGC has said it would do in the past 8 months it has done, exactly as described, on the timeline it announced. The line is, this operation will continue relentlessly until the enemy is decisively defeated. France hosts several military bases in the Middle East, notably in Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Jordan, all countries which have been targeted by Iranian missiles on Saturday. The outbreak of war between the United States, Israel, and Iran carries grave consequences for international peace and security. At this decisive moment, every measure is being taken to ensure the security of our national territory, our citizens. French military personnel in Qatar, the UAE, and Jordan, all countries that Iranian missiles struck today. French President Macron issued an emergency statement from the Élysée Palace within hours of the first wave, convening France's Defense Council, activating security protocols for French nationals across the region. Not because France is at war, because France's military personnel are stationed in 3 of the 6 countries that Iran struck simultaneously in the first 90 minutes of its response. And the French government has no mechanism to guarantee their safety, while the early warning radar that was supposed to provide advance notice of incoming missiles is sitting in pieces in northern Qatar. Active and serious negotiations have yet again been undermined. Neither the interests of the United States nor the cause of global peace are well served by this, and I pray for the innocents who will suffer. I urge the United States not to get sucked in further. Badr el-Basaidi, the Omani foreign minister, the man who flew to Washington on Friday evening, who met J.D. Vance, who appeared on CBS News begging for more time, who said peace was within reach as recently as Thursday, who spent 6 weeks as the diplomatic lifeline that kept the possibility of a negotiated solution alive, posting on X today, in public, urging America not to get sucked in further. His country is the only one in the Gulf that Iran did not strike. His mediation is the reason Oman was spared. And his public message to America, not to get sucked in further, is the clearest possible signal that the man who knew the most about where negotiations actually stood believes that what has begun today cannot be contained through the channels he was operating. Furthermore, the Houthis announced that they would resume attacks in the Red Sea. X. The Red Sea is reopening as a conflict zone. The Houthis, who paused their attacks on commercial shipping during the ceasefire period that followed June 2025, announced within hours of the first American bomb falling on Tehran that they would resume operations. The Red Sea shipping corridor that carries 15% of global trade, that was paralyzed for months in 2024 before American naval operations created a partial deterrent, is now back in the threat environment it occupied before. Except the American naval assets that created that deterrent are now engaged in an active combat theater in the Persian Gulf, rather than available for Red Sea escort duty. Despite Trump's assertion that the strikes were necessary to counter an imminent threat from Iran, U.S. officials have not publicly presented evidence that Tehran was on the verge of deploying a nuclear weapon. It does not have a nuclear weapon, and its missiles are not believed to be capable of reaching the United States. Diplomatic talks held in Geneva on Thursday between Iranian negotiators and U.S. Special Envoys Steve Witkoff. And Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, appeared to have gone well. So something doesn't add up. Appeared to have gone well. That sentence, published by NBC News in its live blog from the middle of the war that started 2 days after those talks, is the sentence that every historian of this conflict will eventually quote as the moment where the public record and the private decision most obviously diverged. The talks appeared to go well. Then the bombs fell. Something doesn't add up. The source document for this entire series said something in its first entry. Weeks ago, when the Geneva talks were still scheduled and the carriers were still positioning, that is now simply history. The negotiations were cover. All of it, Witkoff, Aragchi, the Omani intermediaries, the Vienna technical talks that were announced Friday morning, was the clock counting down, not the calendar of diplomacy working. The operation was planned for months. The launch date was decided weeks ago. The diplomats were props in a stage set that was always going to end with bombs at 2:30 a.m. on a Saturday morning. The Burj Khalifa was evacuated today. Kuwait's airport terminal was struck. Qatar's early warning radar, the sensor that makes the Gulf's entire defense network function, is destroyed. Iran's hypersonic weapons are still in reserve. The Houthis are resuming Red Sea operations. 85 girls are dead in Manab. 200 Iranians are dead across the country. The Strait of Hormuz has received its closure warning. And Iran's IRGC says the operation will continue relentlessly until the enemy is decisively defeated. Share this video to every contact you have right now. Qatar's radar is gone. The Gulf's defenses are partially blind. Iran's most dangerous weapons have not been used yet. And the war that we tracked for 6 weeks through every intelligence leak, every Geneva demand, every carrier position and missile stockpile number, that war is now in its 8th hour with no ceasefire in sight.